Good evening. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, Tuesday, April 7th, 5:30 p.m. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Long.
Here.
Vice Chair Keever.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Bagwell.
Here.
Commissioner Cassiopo. Commissioner Coburn. Commissioner Curtis.
Here.
Commissioner Glenn. Commissioner Lehman. A quorum's present.
So just for the record, Commissioner Colburn and Commissioner Lehman both have excused absences. They let me know they wouldn't be here previously. Let's see. Is there any public comment? Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up from them? Any kind of comments? Let's see. For the approval of minutes, we have a couple minutes. Myself, I didn't see anything that needed modifying. Does anybody else have anything? Any comments? Anybody want to approve them?
Mr. Chairman, I will move to approve. You want them one at a time?
Sure, just do one at a time.
Okay. Oh, dear. Which ones are they?
I think it's January.
Okay, I'll start with the meeting of February 3rd,
Okay.
2015. I move those minutes be approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No nays. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2015. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No nays. All right. To the meeting items. For possible action, to consider the possibility of a property exchange with Mr. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Modifications to the agenda.
Is Vern doing this one?
Would anybody like to do any modifications to the agenda? Are we good? I think we're good rolling. Okay. 3A, to consider to the possibility of a property exchange with Mr. Fagan for 20 acres of land from U.S. Highway 50 near Clear Creek and a vacant park property located on Buzzy's Ranch Road, which I believe was about an acre if I remember correctly. And Ann, would you like to speak a little more about this?
Thank you. For the record, Ann Bollinger, Open Space Administrator. I have a brief PowerPoint also to help give you a visualization on the various properties that we're talking about this evening. Also in the audience, Mr. Fagan is here and he can answer any questions for the Commission. Okay, the first property in question is 20 acres owned by Mr. Fagan. This is a large aerial view. I will zoom in, but to give you some perspective, the town of Carson City is right down to the right of your map, traveling up Highway 50, and his 20 acres is located just to the north side. And as a close-up in that area, this is the Clear Creek interchange. And so later through the presentation in your staff report, we do highlight that one of the primary purposes of acquisition on this property is trail connectivity through the area. This property has been identified on an open space opportunities map. One of the reasons we are here with this commission is we have hit the era where the open space program has limited funds. So we do not currently have funding for an outright purchase of this property. Mr. Fagan was open to other opportunities, one of which was a trade for other parcels in Carson City. We sat down with Mr. Fagan, looked at the map, and identified the next parcel as one of those potential trade properties. The parcel on Highway 50 is 20 acres. This is a view looking up towards that property, again on the north side of 50. There is a variety of vegetation. It is very scenic since it is right next to 50. That entire stretch, there is no development currently. And so those are one of the things that the city considers as well in the open space program. What is the threat of development? What is the impact on our viewshed? As you travel up 50, in the background there is a U.S. Forest Service sign. So that is one of the visual things that you can see to help identify where this property is on the landscape. And a few more pictures of the property as well. It is a little hard to tell in the photo, but once you travel up the hillside, there is a bench right in this location. The purchase of this property, as I mentioned, is located near the Clear Creek interchange on the south side of 50. Carson City and the Unified Pathways Master Plan has identified a trail, and I will go into that in a minute. But if for some reason we cannot build a trailhead on the state lands parcel, again, this bench could provide the opportunity for Carson City. So it is an alternative in the future. It's not a large parcel, it's not a large area. And so as I look at this, I would compare it to the trailhead parking lot up on Highway 50 for the Tahoe Rim Trail. Some of the items that the open space looks at when we consider acquisition of a property is the wildlife values, the vegetation attributes. I mentioned the long ridge with long views from this property. It's a clear view down valley to the south, down to Carson Valley. You cannot see Carson City from this viewpoint. The size is 20 acres. It would be fully accessible to the public, and the soils, high infiltration soils within a watershed protection area. And again, this is right above Clear Creek. Some of the other factors when we consider acquisition for open space is acquired with terms. So in this instance, it can be acquired through a trade with other parcels. It is in an open space priority area. That was the map I showed the commission at the beginning. Again, identified on our master plan, and it's adjacent to other open space parcels. I'll go back to that, the property map. All the blue parcels that you see here, and this is Kings Canyon Road, the dirt road that travels up to the west. Everything in blue is currently owned by Carson City. We purchased that as part of an agreement also with Mr. Fagan when we purchased a conservation easement for the meadow, referred to as the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement. You might have heard some of those terms previously. Okay, so on the Unified Pathways Master Plan, right in this area is Mr. Fagan's parcel. The dotted line on our Unified Pathways Master Plan, it is the identification that a trail is conceptual. So when we go into the next stage of identifying a trail on the landscape, that's when Jeff Potter, who's also in our audience, spends quite a bit of time traveling the hillsides, looking at what are the constraints on the hills, where the canyons, and Jeff has done an amazing job with his evaluation on the Ashley Kings Trail, and he's currently looking at other prospective trails in our community as well. But on the Unified Pathways Master Plan, it is identified as a conceptual trail. So working with Mr. Fagan, if the city moves forward with a trade of these parcels, what we have looked at so far, the parcel just on the other side, on the north side of the interchange, is all currently owned by state lands. We have talked with an engineer in Carson City who has looked at the topography maps, and using an average slope on the trail, a grade of about 5%, which is what the Ashta Kings Trail is, he was able to identify a trail that crossed Mr. Fagan's property and does a switchback and crosses Carson City and could connect with the Kings Canyon Road. So the property that we are looking at for exchange is located at 1020 Buzzy's Ranch Road. The Parks Division acquired this property in 1997. We did purchase it with residential construction tax, and it was during the entire time that this whole subdivision was built. So we acquired other property, such as across the street is the Hidden Meadows Trailhead. We acquired that in the subdivision map. We acquired portions of the Mexican Ditch Trail. We acquired the River Park Wetlands and a few other parcels at that time. But this is one we purchased for $60,000, and we purchased it for school access. We didn't necessarily purchase it for a park, according to the minutes. And if we look at a trade, and we can continue the discussions with the school, and they do have a gate at the back entrance of their school, you can see in the photo here. Some of the school children do access the gate. It is open at the beginning and end of the school day, but locked during for school security. We can continue those discussions with the school district, whether school access is still needed, and if we can accommodate that on the parcel in that trade with Mr. Fagan. This is a view of the same parcel looking to the north. One of the other items that I would like to mention in the open space evaluation form is on table B. It does identify that the property, let's see, under the category of urgency, there is a check mark next to the box, private negotiation not on the open market. So because of that, it has a low value for the scoring criteria. However, if the city does not wish to purchase the property, it will be on the open market. So I guess in that sense, you could elevate it to the next level. It is a medium level of urgency for acquisition. Let's see. Are there any questions at this time?
Commissioner Curtis?
Thank you. Would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Fagan what you would like to do with the property that we have? Do you have any plans for it, or? I think you have to come up here, I'm sorry.
If you would, come up and please sign in, too.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And while Mr. Fagan is signing in, some of the other, another comment I would like to make, if the property was exchanged, it would, the property on Highway 20 would be a park parcel versus open space.
Okay. Could you repeat your question, please?
Certainly. Apparently taken an interest in this property on Buzzy Ranch Road. Is there any particular interest that you have with it, or are you just going to leave it?
The reason I have an interest in that parcel is it's one of the few parcels that doesn't have some kind of overriding restriction on it within Carson City to possibly do this trade. I mean, initially, as Ann said, I wanted to sell that parcel up there on 50 to open space, but open space doesn't have the budget right now to do that. So we were searching other parcels, and we went through many, and this looked like something that might be feasible. Ultimately, I'm trying to get the monetary value out of my land on 50, but if there's an intermediary step to do that with a different parcel, I'm fine to do that. I think the highest and best use of that parcel on Buzzy Ranch is probably a subdivide with one or two houses on it. But I'm not really interested in building the houses, so I would probably find somebody that was interested in that.
Commissioner Bagwell?
So my question goes to the purchase of the Buzzy Ranch was done with residential construction tax. Does the property that Mr. Fagan currently owns also qualify for use of residential construction tax? So it's a consistent tax allowance, so that if we were to swap the properties, it would be appropriate, they were both eligible for residential construction tax.
I think, that's more of a legal question, but I think it's feasible that, it would probably qualify for RCT monies in that sense, because you're using RCT money in that land deal. So I think it's feasible that could happen. Obviously, we would have to verify that and, look at the NRSs and verify that is truly the case, but I would think it would be.
So I think if we make any type of motion for this, it should include a verification that residential construction tax funds are eligible for the property we're looking to purchase or swap with Mr. Fagan. Well, we're swapping. So the Buzzy Ranch property was purchased with residential construction tax. So I just want to make sure that we're not giving away residential construction tax money to Mr. Fagan, and this property is not eligible to be residential construction.
Yeah, I think the real question is can we take property that was purchased with residential construction tax and turn around, do we own that property outright to where we can swap that property for another property? And I think that we've determined that we can do that. Now, the flip side of this is too, we still have to have conversations with the school district as to the feasibility of this. They have not come right out and said that they support it, nor have they come out and said that they oppose it. They are evaluating the situation, but that's another factor in this whole equation too.
Couple of things. If they needed that pathway for the kids, I'm sure we could accommodate that with whatever the end result was. It might not be in the exact same place, but still going through the property. One other thing that I wanted to point out, in that same table B that Ann mentioned on the urgency, I mean, I first approached Open Space back in September with this proposal, and I've held this property in abeyance for not listing it for 6 months now. So whatever the answer is, I'd like to know at your earliest convenience. You know, because I had done business with the city twice on the adjacent property of Horse Creek Ranch over the last, well, I think we started in 2003 is how long it took to get all of that done. I'd like to see that through and you know, put the icing on the cake with getting this one instead of selling it to somebody that's going to put an obnoxious house on it, which right across the street there are a couple. So on that side of the highway, there aren't any buildings. So I'd like to see it stay scenic. And to that end, on that table B, number 2, the ease of acquisition, one of the things that we went through on, was it the Board of Supervisors that tentatively authorized the appraisal money? Okay, so we'd have to do an appraisal on any swap just to make sure that the values are somewhere in line. If it came out that 1 acre was not as high as the 20 acres, I would be willing to, you know, give a little bit on my side of the equation so that, I mean, I would consider that, number one, landowner motivated to sell at less than cost, you know, within reason. If it came out a third, probably not that much, but, you know, as long as it's close.
To add to that statement, the Open Space Advisory Committee has budgeted money for appraisal of more than one property.
Commissioner Curtis.
Yes, so that brings up a couple of questions, I guess, in my mind is, first of all, I was a little puzzled about the timing on this. Why hadn't we talked to school before it came here so we would know more about what their thinking is on it? Is it a possibility, a probability that they're going to agree to this, or I was just wondering why we didn't already have their comments on it at this point? And to Mr. Fagan's point, how long is it going to take you to get an answer out of them?
Well, I think before we put too much staff time and effort into this, we want to see if there's an appetite at this level to even pursue it and the feasibility of it. And so before we dedicate, like I said, before we dedicate a lot of resources to this, we have them working at the same time. That we're coming to you folks, we're having them working and looking at it, but we have to understand it is our property. You know, they may have some concerns, but like Mr. Fagan alluded to, you know, a lot of those concerns can be alleviated, like if we create an easement, an access easement for the kids, which is really all it's used for right now. Our initial conversations with the school district have been positive, so we think that whatever hurdles we face, we could probably jump over them, but we wanted to see right now if there's an appetite to even do this and pursue it.
Also, how is Mr. Fagan's property zoned? That he mentioned you could build a house on it, maybe. Is it zoned for?
I think it's conservation reserve, so conservation reserve is a 20-acre minimum lot in that area.
I guess if I could just make one final point, well, it may not be, but also the comment about the trail. To me, there's no harm in having another trail. If you've got a trail that you're already kind of planned on, or you've got an idea where it might go, and that's feasible, then just for a change of scenery or something, maybe nice to have another one if we get the property.
I guess for the record, I'm excited that we could use it as trail, and I wouldn't mind maybe if Mark or Jeff, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but do you guys have any comments? Okay. So I'm interested to see what you have to say, but I'm excited about it. I'm thankful that you're willing to work with the city to do something like this rather than it turning into some sort of major condominium or something someday. So I appreciate that. I do kind of echo Commissioner Curtis's comments about the school district, but I feel like we could probably just work through it, whether it be, especially if you're willing to have an easement through that maybe would divide it or do whatever it would do in order to allow that. Seems pretty reasonable. So does anybody else? Commissioner Casiopo?
I just, I can't officially speak on behalf of the school district, but knowing, the way that property's been used, I think the school district probably will certainly work with the city on this. There will be some interest in seeing if we can maintain access because the way the neighborhood's set up, kids who live in that side of the town, if you will, it's a bit of a haul to get to the front of the school. So as long as, that possibility allows the potential for an easement or something to allow access to the school, I think the school district would appreciate that, certainly.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to point out that the access issue is not unusual for the school district. If you look at Seeliger School, if you look at the Northridge subdivision, most of our subdivisions have some type of access in between homes that they use to get to school. So it's not we're not reinventing the wheel here. So like I said, in our conversations, they seem fairly positive that we could work it out.
Okay.
And just as one follow-up, and there isn't anything else that could go there besides houses on that property in Buzzy Ranch to concern any of the other residents. It's like you said, you could put a split through it, but it couldn't be anything besides housing that we would then be upsetting the residents. Right, right? It's
I
zoning.
wouldn't believe so. No, and the zoning currently on the Buzzy's Ranch Road parcel is the parks zoning,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it could be a
parks
park.
recreation. And so there would be a process for us to change the zone
'Cause
to
you'd have
residential.
You'd have to change the zoning.
We would need to change the zoning. The deed, the wording in the deed does not prohibit us from selling it. It does say whoever purchases the property would have to abide by the CCNRs. So perhaps that would be a restriction, but that's part of the residential.
I live there, so I just thought I better protect my neighborhood to make sure right now, or I might not be able to go home. Yeah, okay.
Public comments? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. As Ann mentioned, oh, by the way, my name is Jeff Potter. I sit on the board of Muscle Powered and also have worked with the city to work building the Ashton Kings Canyon Trail. When we started that trail, we also looked at the opportunities to connect from Ashton Kings to the Clear Creek Trail, which is in Douglas County, and if you haven't been on that trail, it's fantastic. But since they put that interchange there, that gave us the opportunity to actually have a connection. Without that interchange, that really wasn't possible. And when you look at Mr. Fagan's parcel, that's actually a prime connection for us to make. The land to the west of Mr. Fagan's property is state land, and it's quite steep. And Mr. Fagan sits on a really nice, relatively gentle slope in comparison to what's around it, and it makes it the prime place to put a trail. The city land, which I think is just to the east of that, is actually a drainage, and we really don't like to put trails in drainages that ascend. It's just going to be a fall line and cause more erosion, and it's not fun for the user. So we have surveyed the area for a trail, and that is the perfect piece to make the connection to the interchange and then hook up to the Clear Creek Trail. So I think it'd be a great acquisition.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I guess one question I had is, Commissioner Bagwell, I don't really quite understand how the RCT or whatever were that question. I guess because maybe I let Malak understand, I don't see really exactly where it would be relevant. but could you maybe explain a little bit more there? But I'm leaning towards just approving it, like moving it on to.
So when you use residential construction tax dollars, there is a statute that controls the purpose of that funding. And what I want to make sure is we don't swap this property out and violate what the statute requires us to use residential construction tax for. So, and I'm really one of those people that believes when you tell people you're going to do something with the tax, that that's indeed what you do with it. And so I'm believing that potentially when you read the statute on residential construction tax, I'm really hopeful that Mr. Fagan's property would also fit the definition. So then all we're doing is swapping one residential construction tax for another. And I'd be very comfortable with that. But I really like taxes to be used for the method and the requirements,
How they're intended.
how they're intended.
But mainly meaning just the original property that was acquired on Buzzy's Ranch, the way it was acquired, just to make sure that this trade
Is
meets that
consistent.
same- Okay, I understand.
Consistent.
Yeah, we'll look into that, and we feel like we can honor the purpose of that purchase of that property, which was to give access to the school. They didn't want to build houses there. They didn't want to landlock the school, so they wanted to keep free access to the school. If we can kill two birds and get the highest and best use of that land within the spirit of residential construction tax and still maintain that access, that's what we hope to do.
Sure.
So,
Commissioner Kieran?
I had a question for Scott. Scott, how long do you think it would take to make that determination? Mr. Fagan's indicated that he'd like us not to drag our feet. Would that be a time-consuming effort to get that determination, or could we get it maybe in a couple weeks?
yeah, our deputy district attorney here says less than that, so they
Okay.
would get right on it.
And just so you know, we've already looked at that because we had anticipated this was, especially since the residential construction tax is linked to the Buzzy's Ranch Road, and we've already looked into that. There's nothing in the Carson City Municipal Code under Chapter 15 that would preclude Mr. Fagan to along the lines of changing the character of the property. Since Buzzy's Ranch was built back in 1997, there's nothing in the code that would preclude him to eventually rezone it for houses or however he wants to recharacterize the property. But we will look into Commissioner Bagwell when it comes to swapping residential construction tax to from Buzzy's Ranch Road to the property that we're interested in acquiring.
Have a motion.
All right, give it a go.
Okay, I move to consider the possibility of a property exchange as far as it is consistent with the purposes of the Residential Construction Act with Mr. W. Michael Fagan for 20 acres of land that he owns on U.S. Highway 50 near the Clear Creek Interchange, APN 007-051-81, for vacant property located on 1020 Buzzy Ranch Road, APN 010-61101, and to hold a public hearing at a future meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. No nays. Thank you.
And just to wrap up that item, I will schedule your next Parks and Recreation Commission for a public hearing for the neighborhood.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Mr. Fagan.
Yes, thank you. So,
Moving-
one thing to me.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to item 3B, for possible action to support the efforts of the Eagle Valley Trails Committee regarding their work with the community and land management agencies to improve the trail systems within the Eagle Valley area. This is with Ann Bollinger.
I will introduce the item and then turn it over to some of our guests. With us tonight, we have Jeff Potter with Muscle Powered and Mark Hembrough with Washoe Zephyr Consulting. And there has been a group of just interested parties that have been getting together, I don't know, over a year or two, upon themselves to discuss trails issues throughout Carson City. And so part of their efforts have included inventorying trails with the goal of even identifying system trails and they'll talk about it in the next steps of what it means for the community. So I'll go ahead and turn it over.
Sure. Hello, my name is Jeff Potter, for the record, and I'm with Muscle Powered and the Eagle Valley Trail Committee. I'll talk to you a little bit about this, and then Mark will bail me out for everything that I forgot. I'll tell you a little bit about the history after I tell you our mission, which is to work with community and land management agencies and implement and to work with community and appropriate land management agencies to bring some of our trails that we have surrounding our city into the system. What happened is when we started the Ashton Kings Trail to get it off the ground, we were also recreating on a lot of the trails that surround our city. And to give you an idea, Toby did it with the help of the running groups, did an inventory of the single track in the area. And to give you an idea, a single track is 18 to 24 to 36 inches wide. We're not looking at double track, only as it pertains to connectivity. So there's about 40 miles of single track surrounding Carson City. About 10 of that is legal. And so that 30 miles of non-system trails that surround our city, which means for the Carson City's Visitors Bureau wants to promote a race or promote cycling or running or anything, they really can't promote these trails. We can't put signs on these trails to show and let the public know where they are. And a lot of these trails that were either walked in or built by users that were trying to create their own opportunities, they weren't really built to a great standard. And so part of this project is, one, identifying those, bringing them to the attention and the evaluation of a better standard to bring them up to, and then and contacting the agencies that these trails are on. Some of it's on city land, some of it's on BLM land, some of it's on Forest Service land, some of it's on private property. And so we're contacting these people and letting them know what's there before we move forward with this, because we want to partner with them to get these trails into the system if we can. And by doing it through the proper evaluation of NEPA or whatever environmental assessments are required for that. The committee is based on, we're informal, but we're based with Muscle Powered, Friends of Silver Saddle Ranch, the Tahoe Mountain Milers, High Desert Horsemen, and we were also in discussions with the Pine Nut Mountains Trail Association, which is the motorized group, because we're not about closing access off or anything like that. We're just looking to bring our trails up to a standard and then bring them into the system. So our objectives are to respect private property rights, to inventory, review, and evaluate the non-motorized trails in the study area, which is Eagle Valley. To advocate for the adoption and creation of a network of sustainable trail systems, to make recommendations to land management agencies to improve the trail systems, to work with the agencies in support of the maintenance of the trails. And that's where Muscle Powered comes in, and this is taking that responsibility of making the organized effort to build, reroute, and bring them up to a sustainable standard. And to collaborate with the motorized recreation community and support their efforts identified during the consensus of the approved planning, and to improve the quality of life of our community. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, because I really don't like to speak.
You did great. Actually, a lot of communities put together a group of people interested in trails, and a lot of times they're like the Board of Supervisors would appoint like this committee to do that. But there's also grassroots groups too. And I've worked, I know some of the history of that because I've been involved with a couple of community plans like this. But it's really a great opportunity for the city because these are all people interested in trails, and we're doing an inventory, but there's no cost to the city. If you ask some consultant to come in and do this kind of work, it's not very inexpensive to inventory every trail in your community and then to evaluate all of them that we're working on and looking for sustainability, setting standards, doing all these things and setting up a very professional system of this trail evaluation and working with the agencies. We've met so far with the U.S. Forest Service, which is very receptive, BLM that was excited. One that we're cautiously happy about is state lands coming up, because we have issues with state lands, not issues, we have difference of opinion of use of state lands, which I support what they're saying, but it'd be a sensitive meeting a little bit maybe. But when I work with open space as a consultant sometimes. I work just a tiny bit with this project, mainly volunteer this project, to help them put this plan together, but we're prepared. When we meet with the agencies, what we really want, our goals, we made this pamphlet, which you guys have, kind of outlining what our goal is, and making sure really high priority is protecting private property, because there's a lot of plans and communities that get torpedoed by the NIMBYs coming in on private property, so we're going to work really hard on not doing that. Also part of this evaluation are access points, which sometimes can be those hot buttons. So we're going to be cautious with how those are approached. And what's unique about this is this group is going to bring this to the public, the Eagle Valley Trail Committee, with support from the agencies. They'll be there to answer questions. We can't promise nobody anything. We haven't put our desire lines on there yet to avoid conflict yet, because the desire lines will come out of the public meetings. They're going to sit there and say, what about this, what about this? And that's the other reason you want to meet with the agencies, because people are going to draw lines in places that the agencies may not support. But all we're doing is gathering information and inventory, and that we make no promises that any desired lines move forward, and that everybody understands very clearly that the environmental process can take you up to 5-6 years for any trail before you turn dirt on anything from a desire line to a reality. So there's a lot of education, and then we'll set up these public meetings after we've had all these chances to get agency support, which we did. We'll have maps in the room, and people come in, and we're going to do survey. We'll find out which trails are being used the most, who's using them, how far they're coming, how often they use them, find out how much trespassing is probably going on, and that may not help us, but it'll prove a point that. And then set priorities. We hope to be involved with the priorities, setting the standards. Some of those trails out there that are being used are up like 30%, and that major water event we had here a while ago turned them all into gullies, some of those. So improving standards so maintenance comes into play, and what's most important. And this started a few years ago. I'm involved with another group, Sierra Front Rec Coalition, who's actually putting a trail summit on about collaboration.
You're all invited to.
On April 29th. The ANT's coming. And it's about how much effort it takes to build a trail. And trails are unique, how they go through private to state to county to city to utility districts to the Forest Service to BLM to do one trail. And it's pretty important that collaboration takes place to get these types of trails put in place. And a little highlight to this is Noel just advertised in the newspaper a while ago. They're going to bring in a whole lot of bike riders here in a couple of years. So this is kind of timely to look at where they're going to be able to ride and how they can be promoted and how the agency is going to support it. So the plan is when we get done with these public hearings as this committee, setting priorities, coming back to the groups with what took place at these events, looking at what was most important. And when I was talking about the Sierra Front Rec Coalition, the agencies get, one group will come in and want this trail, another group will come in and want this trail, and they want everybody to come in and say, what do you want? Along the range, not piece. Don't come at me with pieces. Jeff's been really good at that. Now they're working at connectors along. And so they really wanted this collaboration from the community so that people come in with a good voice. And if you have all the groups in the same room talking the same thing, when the public comes in and having all this very transparent, hopefully it'll be very successful. But you never know what lingers in the hallway sometimes when you do planning projects. But that's kind of the goal, and there's a lot more to it, but a lot of credit needs to go to Toby Welburn, who's not here, who's done all the maps, did all the GIS work in his own time. That's a very valuable resource to this group. And we're not quite totally done yet, but they've pretty well been inventoried. And now we're doing the database on there. And then all the Jeff's effort, but all these trails were inventoried by runners and other groups before I even stepped into this process.
I think we got quite a bit from Brett.
Oh, that's right. Brett was at the meeting too. That's right. So I think that pretty well gives you some ideas. And what we're looking for is support and understanding that where we're moving. And open space has already supported us, and that they're kind of the umbrella a little bit for this group by helping me help them to move this along. And I can do all of that kind of grunt work that helps groups sometimes. So somebody's in the back always making sure things are scheduled and done and taken care of. So I don't think I need to talk much more on that.
You're losing your voice.
Yeah, I'm losing my voice.
So no, thanks guys. I know you guys have done an incredible amount of work and great job. And then obviously just the Ash to King is an awesome trail and a testament to, especially Jeff, but there's a big group of guys that have made it all happen. But I look at the level of standard that is, and most people, if they've ever been up there, they know, hey, Jeff's built this trail.
Muscle powered.
It's muscle powered, but there's somebody behind it. And but anyway, I think you look at that, and just like we discussed about the Highway 50, and potentially if that goes through, would be a huge asset to connect. But the connectivity to link all these trails all together, to me, is like a critical component to make in the end, especially when we're to the point of advertising this being in quality of life and having events come into town and everything. I think it's another huge asset. So thank you. And does anybody have any other questions, comments?
Yes, thank you. Couple of points or questions. One is you chose not to include the motorized trails. Is that because it's just too much, or?
Two-track. The whole group is called single-track, non-motorized. But the motorized are involved, especially on two tracks for connections, because we want to be very clear to the OHV groups, we're not out to close any trails in this project, we're inventorying. But there are opportunities, like over at Centennial Park, where there might be OHVs using the two-track that a mountain bike will need to connect maybe to other single tracks. And there's Ash Canyon, there's Kings Canyon, where there's opportunities for both. So they haven't been eliminated, but they haven't been brought in to do an OHV plan. But I will tell you at the public meeting, there will be an OHV station for the OHV folks to go over and talk about that. But with the understanding this is an inventory and it's a single track group. But I've told the agencies in our meetings that we will gladly take comments to hand to the agencies and let the agencies do what they want with them, but not deny the OHV groups to make comments at this hearing. And they have an opportunity, and they'll have a map over there showing the trails that exist, which aren't a lot, that are actually part of what we're doing because they connect to single tracks. Does that make sense?
Well, are there a lot of motorized trails that aren't going to be in the inventory then?
Not necessarily, because we're not doing two tracks. See what I'm saying?
I'm sorry, I'm totally ignorant. Are there a lot of two-track
There's a lot of double
trails
track.
that should be inventoried at some point maybe and looked at for, environmental concerns, et cetera, et cetera?
For the OHVs or for both?
Or for, well, I guess
See,
what
we're only evaluating if they connect to something that, like if you want to ride your bike up Ash Canyon, then jump on the Ash to Kings Trail. You're going to ride that road, which is also an OHV facility too. So we don't want to ever get in a position where we're thinking we're going to close their road off. So they're evaluated, but most roads, two tracks, don't meet trail standards. So when we evaluate them, actually will be more discussion later. There's new ways of classifying trails now because of IMBA, which is the National Representation for Mountain Bikes. They have blue, green, and black, diamond. The Forest Service in the past, which there's a lot we could talk about. The forest system has what's called system trails, like the Tahoe Rim Trail, where I worked for years. Those are in the system, they maintain them, they own them. There's very few system trails, all but Ash to Kings, that's it.
Prison Hill.
For the Forest Service. So that standard, they don't have blue, green, and black diamond. It has to meet 5 to 10% primarily. There's some exceptions to that. So when we go to this new system, you can actually have better rides for the mountain bikers because you might have something at Centennial Park that's a black diamond, but it's shown to be a black diamond that doesn't meet normal specs. BLM has no trail specs. They've pretty well adopted the Forest Service, but we're working very hard to work with IMBA now so that they have the IMBA and a combination of that and Forest Service specs. So you start getting into the detail for these trails, and that's where the OHV component comes in. All we're trying to do is making sure we don't let them get erased off the map, that the roads that they're using they can use. and that the classification for a dirt bike or an ATV certainly doesn't worry about black diamonds and blues and greens. So, but is that clear? I had to add a lot of information to your question to make that clear for myself, and Jeff might even have some addition there.
No, I appreciate all the extra information as well as, my basic question. The other thing is, you say there's over 30 miles of trails that right now aren't placed anywhere. I mean, they're not shown on a map or whatever. Are you going to be trying to keep every single one of those, or is there some of these that may go away because they're not being used, or it's just too environmentally detrimental to use them, et cetera?
Most of them aren't in that bad a shape, but those that are will probably just require a reroute if that's the case, or a realignment. Just off the top of my head of thinking what we have in there, most of the stuff that would have to be mitigated would be something that goes straight up a fall line, or just straight up the mountain, because that's just bringing all the soil down into the homes, which a good example is the main trail climbing up from the water tank up Prison Hill. I think all the sediment in that main trail, which was I think an old roadbed, went all the way down Kuntz and caused some major problems. So that might be a little bit beyond our scope for that particular road. I mean, we'd have to work with the city closely on how we fix that problem. But as far as the other trails that are up there, just some reroutes maybe, and mitigate some of the trails that are out there, because there's some redundancy also. But that's something we need to get together with, the running groups and the people that are that recreate up in that area, because this isn't just two guys making a plan. This is a community thing, and we want to make everybody happy and educate them on this is why we're doing this, and we want these trails to last forever.
So it's actually all of
or
the
at least
above.
till I die.
It's actually all of the above. Some might be rerouted, some might be closed, some might need to be added. If it's private property and there's not a willing owner, reroutes. If it's a place you really want to go A to B, and if you have a piece of private that's really critical, and if nobody's willing to buy it and there's sales, so it's all of the above.
Which I think that's the importance of identifying what we have right now and just taking the inventory, so that once we start to have those public forums, it's clear that people can highlight which ones they actually use, and we can it highlights the redundancies if it made sense to need to clean it up or realign. I like that, realign versus reroute or whatever. But Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you guys just put together a good tool for us for future planning on trail systems for connectivity and working with the ATV folks and the off-road folks. And I think it sounds like a pretty good deal, and I really applaud your efforts so far. I think you've done a great job.
And it was free. almost free.
Sweat equity.
Any other comments? Commissioner Keever?
Yes, I have a question. You're talking about a meeting on the 29th? Where is it? What time? All the particulars?
Do
you have an hour?
If I can, I'll email it to Ann tomorrow. It's a trail summit.
Okay.
And every trail group in the Sierra Front, I actually am the lead putting this together. We did one last year too. We had like 60 people show up. So all the way from Pyramid Lake to Alpine County to Lake Tahoe. And the agencies and the RTP Money Committee showing up this year. And we have some presentation on some successful collaborations, which this is going to be one of the presentations actually, that Toby will be working on. And then we have a afternoon session where we're going to split you out. People are going to talk about how collaboration could be successful for trails in your community. And because you'll hear a lot more about trails. And the biggest deal is networking. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest networking opportunity in trails in this part of the country that takes place there. And that's the primary reason people like to come to it. They talk to other groups about how they do things and get things done. And
is that going to be held locally or?
In Reno at Bartley Ranch. It's a Wednesday. Only $20. The lunch costs more than that, so it's subsidized quite a bit from a grant that I got from REI. So, and Nevada Energy gave a big chunk of change this year. So if you have time, I'll get it to Ann tomorrow and she'll ship it out. The flyer's ready. The agenda's almost ready, but There's a group coming from Mammoth that's formed a really good collaboration building trails in the community up there. They're coming down for a presentation. And IMBA's going to be there for a small presentation.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, would you mind, you could email us to that,
Actually, you
that
probably
to
already
us?
have it. Yeah, she can send it. She's already got it.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? How about the public? Anybody want to come up?
Maurice.
Maurice. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Good evening. I thought I heard Mr. Kimbrough state that he's not talking to the OHV people in this particular project, and I wonder why that would be, because when I read the founding documents for this group, it states that the Pine Nut Trails Association is a member of this group. So I would think they might have some input as to the condition of some of the trails. I understand it is a more or less a bicycle walking passive recreation inventory, but I think those folks could add some insight to this project.
Sure. I was going to say, I think he could maybe speak for it, but I think one thing I just want to make clear is I think at this point it's just an inventory of the single track trails. And so my feeling is it hasn't gotten to that point yet. But
And again,
Mr. Kimbrough.
Mr. Kimbrough did state that some of the single track use is on the double track facilities that are out there, and I think the Pine Nut Trails Association could add some input to this project.
I don't remember saying any of that, Maurice. I thought I said they were involved. So if I said that, I screwed up.
No, you didn't.
I didn't say that?
You said they were included.
Right.
Well, and, yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
think
they've
it
been-
might have been misunderstood, because I thought you indicated that you were going to allow the OHV to actually even write on the trail system, any
Yeah, to
ideas and
evaluate
stuff?
it, be a part of the
Okay.
process, and they've been at the
I
meetings.
just want to,
And we're actually putting in 2-track OHV trails in the plan, so I don't know where Maurice, sometimes I say things and don't catch myself, so hopefully, Maurice, there was no intent to exclude OHVs.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I think I was reading in the beginning of your document where you said you specifically weren't going to be looking at motorized trails,
Right.
which is the two-track.
Except for the connectivity.
But that doesn't include them from looking at the one.
Right. There's no preclusion. That's just the underlying goal, I guess. Sorry, Maurice. Well, I gave you some mic time that way, though.
Yeah, that's the way I understood also. I think that these folks understand the importance of including the ATV groups and off-road groups. I think if we're going to have everybody get along, and they're going to want the support of the ATV groups, and I think it's still going to bring everything to light. And if there's things that are important for certain members, for certain trails, then I think that if we get them inventoried, we're all going to be better off. So.
Anything else? All right, moving on.
There is a
It
motion.
is a motion. I'll make a motion.
Could I, before you make a motion, could I just question, absolutely support everything you're doing, have for years, but we don't normally do this, do we, where we support groups? I mean, what does support mean? Of course we support you. We're not going to give you any money. But
Let's cut to the chase.
I'm just wondering, no problem if we want to do this, but I was just questioning why we're doing it.
When
Like,
the agenda item came in front of the Open Space Advisory Committee, the actions behind the wording to support the group really would probably be to help them schedule like this CR room for the public meetings without a charge.
And he did mention in his presentation too that when it does get to the point down the road of implementation, they want all the agencies to have a buy-in. So,
Sure.
which Mark Kimbrough did state.
And yeah, I was going to mention that part of the action is I think that it's kind of recognizing that we're working with all the agencies in order to bring it together.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I move to support the efforts of the Eagle Valley Trails Committee regarding the work with the community and land management agencies to improve the trails within the Eagle Valley area.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thanks, guys. Item 3C, for possible action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the transmittal of comments of the Bureau of Land Management on Carson City District Draft Resource Management Plan Environmental Impact Statement. Woo, that was tough.
You should try reading it.
Got it right here. Oh, this isn't it.
It's a 2,000-page document, two
Oh, okay.
volumes.
That's the condensed version.
Yeah, that's right.
You have the crib notes.
All right, so Ann, take it
Okay,
away.
thank you. Again, Ann Bollinger for the record. The comments in front of you this evening only entail about 3 of the subject areas that either they've been in front of the committee before or fall within their purview. The staff, city staff in general, will be taking an entire list to the Board of Supervisors for their recommendation. But to kind of save your time and energy, perhaps you didn't need to hear about all of those, but it will be on the supervisor's agenda if you're interested in learning. One of the other items I would like to inform the committee and the public as well, that the document is available, it's online. As far as I know, there's 2 hard copies in the city. I have 1 copy, so anyone can contact me, or it's also at the BLM office. And the public can submit their own individual comments, and the deadline for comments is September 27th. So now entering into the staff report provided for you. The first subject area in which we're providing comments relates to soil and water resources. The specific comment here relates, if the commission recalls, probably a year ago, when we brought the management plan for the Carson River to the committee, and that included open space, parks, included Silver Sour Ranch, Prison Hill, about 5,000 acres along the Carson River. One of those meetings, we had residents from the Sierra Vista Lane, Mexican Dam neighborhoods come out. That must have been around October, I think, right after some of the floods had happened. And their concerns and questions were, was there funding available? Can the city do anything to repair and manage some of those drainage, not necessarily the drainages, because the drainages are natural to the landscape, but some of the erosion in that particular area is caused by OHVs. So there's a couple of questions and issues related to that, and that's where our comments are related to that item. So this is a particular concern in the canyons and drainages along Sierra Vista Lane. And also, some of those areas up to a point east of Sierra Vista Lane will be transferred to Carson City as part of the Omnibus Public Land Management Act. And that act also stated that only roads in existence can be managed. So we cannot necessarily build new roads, new OHV roads. So that's the first topic here for the commission. And I can either take your questions or continue on through the staff report if you like. Also, when we talked during the management plan, one of the other areas that the public came and commented to the commission was regarding wild horses. And while generally it's not your purview, nor is it really the city's purview, we have been brought into the conversation because the wild horses, which are under the purview of either BLM, if they're south of 50, or the state, if they're north of 50, so around Centennial Park, the horses do travel down to park and open space areas. And so where we're concerned is if there's a damage to property, to the resources. In some instances, horses were hit along the roads, Deer Run Road and Highway 50. So where there's potential concern, we can call the respective agencies and ask for them to manage horses, but we do not manage horses. And so our comments here are consistent with the city's policies as well as the BLM policies. So just to reiterate that we continue to be in agreement. Are there any questions so far on those subjects? Okay, and then moving to recreation, and continuing our subject of the evening, kind of the urban interface area, recreation and trails. And so I also have a few maps that I will provide for the commission. Because the document is so heavy to bring, I thought I would just pull a few maps out to help give you a visual. So the first category here is under comprehensive travel and transportation management. And I will have a close-up so you can see the area. But the entire BLM plan is covering millions of acres in the Carson district. And so in Carson City, the purple color that you see on this map is limited to existing routes. And when Colleen Sievers from the BLM was here, I think in December or January, she said there were 3 categories of roads. Either they are closed, so they're closed period, usually wilderness areas, no motorized, no mechanized, they're closed period. Or they are open, 100% open. The best example of that is Sand Mountain. There's no restrictions out there. You can ride anywhere and everywhere. That is an example of open. Limited means limited to existing routes. And so you can see most of their management area is identified as existing. Also at the top of the map, alternative E, this is the agency preferred. So far where our comment is, and I'll zoom in, but it is poor quality, but I will zoom in. So on the map, this is Prison Hill. The blue is the only area on their map that is closed. But currently, 2/3 of the north end of Prison Hill is also closed, and some of the other areas that we will acquire from BLM are also closed. So one of our comments is this map is incorrect. It needs to accurately reflect current and when those lands are conveyed to Carson City.
Yeah, I guess I have a quick question.
Sure.
So when you're going to be referencing maps in the document, is it possible to reference like more of a living document than something that's printed? So as that's continually updated, it's not something that you have to go back through the entire draft and update?
Yes, our comments to help provide BLM with this. Also, we need some sort of background as we provide comments to BLM. So in this case, our comments say, as in reference to the Omnibus Public Land Management Act. That was a bill signed by Congress that says when these lands are conveyed to Carson City, only the south end of Prison Hill is open to motorized vehicles and the east side of Silver Saddle Ranch. So that is a permanent document. And so we can always all refer back to that document as well. When the final BLM document comes out, you will see alternative F. So keep in mind, this is a draft document. This is a time to provide comments to the BLM. They will review all the comments, agency and public comments, and then come back with alternative F. So right now, E is their agency preferred, but it will continue down the line into probably the next agency preferred or proposed action, whatever their terminology is for the federal government. Some of our other questions as it relates to this specific category of open, closed, and limited is how will this be communicated, effectively communicated to the public? It's not addressed in the plan, but it is one of our questions. The next subcategory, if you will, under travel management relates to travel management areas. And so the next map I have, alternative E, BLM identified, I believe it's 9 travel management areas. In Carson City, we have the Virginia City Travel Management Area, which is mostly north of Highway 50, and the Pine Nut Mountains. And a couple of the questions that we have drafted for clarification to Carson City, when they talk about the Pine Nut Mountains, they talk about 3 zones, the front country, the Pine Nut Crest, and rural recreation management zones. And related to those zones, they also talk about visual aesthetics and with different categories, classification 1, 2, 3. In Carson City, as we were talking about Michael Fagan's property, Carson City really values our hillside open characteristics. Preserve it. Carson City has really cared about those. One of the concerns here so far, the rural zone is a category 4, meaning the highest intensity level of development. Well, on the map, that's hard for me to see from Carson City. Where is that specifically? So I have asked if they can put a map together to help us visualize that. Also related to the Virginia City Recreation Management Area, their map, or in wording, they say the area around Centennial Park will be managed for mountain biking. That is also in conflict with our Unified Pathways Master Plan, where we do identify motorized trails in that area as well. Let's see. And then one other comment that follows this plan will be a travel management plan. And so at this level of planning, they have not identified which roads will remain open or closed. Even though we're limited, routes will be limited, there will be the next level in planning and a travel planning document in which, similar to the Eagle Valley Trails Group, BLM will go out, they will do an inventory and determine, are there redundant roads? Are the roads too steep? Are they in precious, or what's the term? Critical wildlife habitat. So sage-grouse, for example, which could be listed as a threatened species by the time this plan is completed. So those are some of the things to remember at this level. They're planning, they're not identifying roads. It will be the next level of planning. Are there any comments or questions at this time?
Anybody got any comments, questions? Yeah. I think as much as it is a lot for you to digest, I think it's a lot for us to digest right now as well. But so thank you. I guess the action is to recommend to the Board of Supervisors essentially, is it essentially any of our comments to with regard to the draft resource plan and to move that to the Board of Supervisors? Or I guess I'm a little bit unclear on what the motion would be.
Sure. So in your staff report, this is a draft letter. So if you have comments, changes to what we have drafted to the Board of Supervisors, this is a time to let me know now prior to the board.
Yeah, sure.
There's just one typo on your second paragraph right after introduction. In the second paragraph, the end, it says enact this plan and project. I think you want protect these lands. So if we're gonna, since it's the first thing they're gonna read, let's.
And I just had one more typo on page 3 of 3. The second bullet, Carson City acknowledges there will be subsequent travel management, just the word be.
And question regarding, I think at the beginning, I thought you had said something about a deadline for comments also in September. I thought you had said September, but then also there's the 27th. So could you clarify what those two different dates are?
Sure. Just to clarify, for the draft management plan, the deadline for comments from all parties, April 27th.
April 27th, okay. I was going to say, I'm ready for public comment unless anybody else has any questions. Maurice.
Good evening again. Thank you. Hey, I just have a couple of questions basically for clarification, but on the first page of the letter where you want to include a change to the objective as you read through there, and it's talking about OHV use, to limit OHV use to designated roads, trails, and areas of severe erosion hazard susceptibility, and in watersheds where OHV use is causing road and sediment problems. Do you have an inventory of the roads that you want to designate as being limited?
So, to help clarify also for the commission and for the public, so the BLM, their document, they have the goals, and that's why some of this is here for reference as well. So they have an overarching goal, they have objectives, and they have action items. And so that's where the bullet says Carson City recommends adding the following action. And so that's kind of their follow-through to reach their objectives. And so in this specific instance, if we would like to include specific routes, since this is so focused on Sierra Vista Lane, it would be easy to do so.
One other comment on that is at the part where it says OHV use is causing flood and sediment problems. That concerns me a little bit because the way that's written, it sounds as if you're suggesting that OHV is the sole cause of flood and sediment problems, and I would suggest perhaps taking the word causing out and put contributing.
If the commission agrees, staff can do that.
Okay. On page 3, at the very top, you ask a question limited to existing routes. What defines an existing route? On page 7-11 is a definition of existing routes.
Excuse me, Morris, are you indicating that it's not necessary because there is a definition in the plan?
No, I'm just pointing out where the definition is.
So,
Yeah.
so this comment's not necessary then in the
I-
letter
I-
that we send to them because the definition is on page 7-7.
7-11.
Okay, I was close. 7-11. So then we would be able to strike this comment.
I can do that as well.
Right, okay.
On page 184, table 2-2, where it's showing the acreages in the pine nuts being 226,200 acres, and Virginia City being 53,100. Do you have a sense of how many of those acres actually lay within Carson City?
I do not have a sense, no.
Okay. I know this was perhaps not in your comments to BLM, but basically in regards to the BLM plan, there's a little over 38,000 acres in Carson City being asked for withdrawal, and I'm wondering if we can identify those properties. On page F-3, it says Carson City protective withdrawal, 18,594 acres. Can you tell us what those acres are?
I cannot tell you, but I can tell you I have asked BLM for that information.
Okay. And I have submitted many unanswered questions to BLM as well. And just so we can kind of understand, I know this is a question to BLM, but if you look in the column that says effect, it says the property would be withdrawn from settlement, sale, location, or entry under the general land laws. Do you have a sense of what that means where it says entry, under?
I don't have a sense, but that question has come up, let me think on what other parcel, and it is going to the Board of Supervisors at the next meeting. There's a parcel at our northern boundary. It's a triangle-shaped parcel. And Currently, BLM has that identified for disposal to the on the general market, not necessarily to Carson City. And in the Omnibus Public Land Management Act, that triangle is identified in the urban withdrawal boundary, in which it was our intent to withdraw any uses from the general land laws and mining. And so it is our intent, or it was our intent, that we withdrew disposal rights as well. So we're in the process of inquiring, but also notify. This is the opportunity in the plan that if Carson City does not want that sold on the open market, we can tell BLM withdraw it from your plan.
That probably answers the question on the next two. We had a 150-acre parcel to be withdrawn and a 19,747 parcel to be withdrawn, and those are identified in the Omnibus Bill of 2009. They also have a little bit different wording, as in the effect it says all forms of entry and appropriation under the public lands law and mining laws, but it doesn't really say anything. Do you have a sense as to what they're actually trying to say there? Do you want to look at this real quick?
They probably copied the language from the bill, from the congressional bill.
Okay. That's a little confusing, what they're trying to say there. On page 2-24, where it says limit OHV use to designated roads and trails, and the areas to be limited include portions of Prison Hill, Sea Hill, and Mullen Pass. Is Mullen Pass within Carson City? I've never heard of it.
I don't know.
Okay. What parts of Sea Hill will be limited?
There's another area that's also referred to as Sea Hill outside of Carson City. It's in the plan, but I can't recall what county it's in at this point.
Oh, it's not our Sea Hill?
It is not our Sea Hill.
Okay. Okay. It's, you pretty much have to put the spider web together to, actually it's 2,068 pages with about 700 pages in the handbooks that tell them how to create this document. On page 7-40, it's talking about visual resource management. So when I looked on map 2-18, which is on page A18, it shows that there will be two classes. One as class 2, and that looks to be in the Prison Hill area, and then the rest to be whatever left of BLM. Is that an accurate depiction of what BLM is sharing with you?
I agree. I found that inconsistency as well, and in the full comments for the Board of Supervisors, I've probably addressed that same question.
Okay, and I asked that question because if you go to table 2-2 on page 293, it breaks down all the individual properties, but it never lists a Carson City property as having any VRM designation. So apparently you picked that up also? Okay.
If you can, I would like a copy of those last comments as well. Make sure I have the same pages that you did as well.
Okay. Well, this is all my hand scribbles, so I'll write that down for you so you can.
You can see Morris and I have both done our homework.
I've read that thing until my eyes bleed.
It's caused me quite a bit of stress as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. When BLM came, I didn't want to say it was in September or October or whenever when they were here. So when we were talking about the different types of access as far as limit, and I know questions came up about, I think there's pretty good concern whether does limit mean things are getting closed, and I think they clarified, said no, it just means you can't create an additional road or trail without that being going through the proper channels and getting approved. But at the same time, the question came up, what are the existing ones? So once these are submitted, my understanding is still going to be several years before that inventory actually takes place. Is that correct?
This plan in itself, I can tell you, it will probably take another year or two until it's completed. and so the travel management plans will be some time to follow. One thing I would like to add, yes, your understanding is correct, as in the limited. But in addition to that, for probably more of our rural areas and areas probably relating more outside of our county boundaries, if there are special use permits for mining or other special uses that require development on the land, yes, BLM can permit the construction of a new road. So this plan, again, will not preclude if it's part of a special use permit.
Is that an existing, like a special use permit that already exists, or
It would
like
be new.
if it was a new one, it would have to go through the approval process? right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It would have to go through an approval process.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Somebody willing to make a motion?
I'll go ahead. Oops, sorry. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the transmittal of comments to the Bureau of Land Management on the Carson City District Draft Resource Management Plan and Environmental Impact Statement.
As amended.
Did we amend? As amended. I guess we did, yeah, okay.
And as part of that amendment, could we also make sure that Maurice's comments get included in that amendment?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, just so that we're all clear on what we're doing. So we changed project to protect, causing to contributing, which was one of Morris's comments. We also then are able to remove at the top of page 3 the comment because Morris gave where the definition was, and we added the B will be subsequent on the page 2-184. And then the only other question is, you indicated the other comment that Morris made was the protective withdrawal on the 38,000 acres. And you said that you had that question also. Is that in a different piece of the document?
No, that was a verbal question to BLM.
Okay, so should that then be added into this document so that it gets covered in the questions?
I will see if I have that answer prior to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, so tentatively, that section would be added in here also if it's not answered. Just so that we're all on the same page of what we're approving.
Right. So as amended, so I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Chair.
I made the motion.
Thank you, Ann, for all your hard work on
Yeah.
this.
And if you're interested in some light reading material,
Yes.
I will be glad to share with you.
Ann, may I ask you a
So to
question?
be quite honest, I haven't been as interested as Maurice, but thank you, Maurice.
Ann, I have a question.
And actually, if I can add to what Morris just said, you should be interested. BLM only goes through this process every 20 years. And so if we have any changes, now is the time to really take time to be thorough.
Each process takes 20 years.
Yes, I was wondering, are we going to have the sheep this year?
We will have the sheep, but it will be a limited time because of drought. For a couple of reasons, we have had such a good impact on reducing the amount of cheatgrass. So with the limited moisture we've not had a lot of cheatgrass, but also the drought has impacted our desirable grasses on the landscape, and so we do not want to have a damaging effect. So it's a balance of what we will be doing this year.
When?
I don't have a firm date, but we are talking mid-April.
Mid-April.
All right, moving on to 3D thank you again, Ann. For possible action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors a new policy allowing free use of Carson City Aquatics Facility to Carson City resident veterans with 100% service-connected disabilities. This is with Kurt Meyer. Welcome, Kurt.
Anything.
Hi, everyone. Kurt Meyer. About a month ago, a gentleman just moved to Carson City, and he previously lived in Douglas County, and he brought to my attention that Douglas County Swim Center offered him, because he was 100% disabled veteran, service-connected disabled veteran, a free pass to their aquatic facility, and asked if that could happen here. And after talking to Roger, so forth and so on, and getting this together, we're coming to you to ask that you recommend that to the Board of Supervisors. Simple as that. It'd be very simple for us to do at the aquatic facility. It'd be very simple for the veteran to prove to us that he had a service-connected disability. And I personally think that it's the right thing to do, so.
So I think absolutely seems like the right thing to do. I guess one question I had was, right now, is it really one person, or do you have an idea how many others might qualify, I guess?
I talked to James, which is the Cayman and so forth, and he told me that right now in Carson City, there's about 100 people that would, but would they all use the pool? Hey, if they did, that'd be great, you know, that we could give them that opportunity to help their lifestyle and life and so forth.
Okay.
But realistically, will we get 100? I doubt that. And like I said, they have several in Douglas County, and when I talked to the director at the Douglas pool, they said that only 5 use the pool with that type of pass, and it's not a very frequent thing, so.
Okay, I will, well, does anybody have any questions, comments?
I do.
Okay.
I just have one comment. I think it's a great program, and I think that maybe once we start offering it, we might see more veterans who were unaware that we would offer such a program, and they might be more forthwith in using our facilities and just spreading the word about how wonderful we are.
Yeah, and I'm sure James will help us with that. I'd like to introduce, this is James. He brought this to my, James Glasser, he brought this to my attention, so.
Hi, James.
You have to put your name down there.
Yeah, Jack has to sign in, remember? And for those of you who are wondering, Jack is his service dog.
Hi, I'm James Glasser, for the record. I'm a 21-year special operations vet as a ground pounder. The pool down in Douglas, the therapy pool, that's all I use. You know, I'm not able to run, I'm not able to work at it anymore. You know, I got, you know, so I can't do any kind of lifting. You know, I had my arm yanked out of the parachute, you know, so I got arthritis, both knees and ankles, plates and screws holding my foot to my leg. I'm missing a vertebrae, 2 others fused together. So the only way I can get my workout is in the therapy pool, which the heat and everything just makes it so much wonderful, you know, to actually get the workout. You know, for us, you know, that can't do much, anything is, you know, keeping this thing down. You know, I have severe PTSD, so I'm not able to be employed. I don't work well with others. I can't be around others, you know, so, you know, limited exposure. That's why I got Jack. He goes with me everywhere, you know, so the pool is my only outlet, you know, and a lot of us other veterans are exactly the same way. So we're on a fixed income because we can't work. So the $4 a day, I usually go 3 or 4 times a week, you know, so that adds up, you know, so it's just a request that we have to help us keep physically fit and mentally stable and still try to be a little part of the community.
Go ahead.
No, well, so first of all, thank you for your service, and I think it's a no-brainer. We should definitely honor it, and we'll recommend. I'll make a motion when we're ready, and I'll open up to any other comments. Commissioner Keeper, do you have a comment?
Just wanted to echo your thanks to James, and to say just giving him a free pool pass doesn't seem a adequate thanks for his service, but if it's a start, and I echo the chair in thinking that we should honor this request and recommend to the Board of Supervisors.
And then bring your friends.
if this goes through, I'll definitely bring it up at the American Legion and the VFW. You know, there's not too many of us, you know, like there's only 5 of us in all of Douglas County, you know, that are 100%ers. You know, my suggestion was the 100%ers, you know, because everybody that's not 100% still can be employed and work. You know, so they have the opportunity for the other incomes, where the 100%ers were forbidden from the VA to work. You know, it's liability. So, yeah, that's the only thing. But I mean, if you want to go 50 to 100, or you know, different scale for the different veterans, you know, that's, like I said, there's only a limited number of us 100%ers down here, so that's going to be very minimal on the economic impact for the pool. You know, but if you wanted to open up to 50 to 100, there's different ways of verifying this. The VA gives us a letter. It's got your name and the last 4 of your social and tells, you know, service connected, and then it gives you your percentage on that letter. Then they also give you the VA card, and on the VA card it's written service connected. So, you know, I don't know if you guys want to expand it to 50s to 70s, we'll pay it $2, and 70s to 80s will pay $1.50, or 80s to 100 would pay $1, and then you know, the hundreds would be free. You know, there's different ways, or just leave it with the hundreds. You know, I'm just trying to think of my other brothers that are in the same injury levels.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
No, I think it's a great idea. I'm glad you brought this up. I think for the future conversations, we might look into that. I know I fortunately wasn't injured, but I was in the service, and I do a lot of traveling with my family and my daughter and whatnot, and we go to hotels and whatnot, and a lot of hotels more and more now are offering discounts for veterans and whatnot. And so I think in the long term, it's maybe worth those conversations to just look at maybe some kind of, if we can and want to do some kind of discount for veterans, but I think in James's situation, being 100%, yeah, I'm completely in favor of what you're asking for.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
And while we're, you know, thinking of other possibilities, it may be more than just the aquatic center. There may be other activities that, or facilities that we provide that would be of help. So,
there's all kinds.
So, you know, this could go afar maybe, but at this point, you know, I think we're all definitely supporting in what you're asking for, and maybe it's worth future conversations in terms of, you know, what else we can do.
Yeah, everything Nevada so far offers the veterans is just phenomenal. That's why I moved down here from Washington State. You know, I've retired in Washington, and we lived there for 12 years, you know, during my career, you know, but they got a huge number of veterans. They don't do anything for them. But down here in Nevada, I mean, it's just been pure heaven living down here. And, you know, just wonderful folks, and thank you.
Question for Kurt. Okay, the aquatic facility will have no problem accommodating Jack and the other service dogs. They'll be welcome?
That's correct. Jack just can't go swimming. One time a year, yes.
One time a year, Jack can
and
swim.
I'll pay for Jack to go swimming that one time.
All right.
So, Kurt, I guess I wouldn't mind if you would just maybe keep a list of the other veterans that may not be 100%, and maybe if
Future
you,
discussion item?
yeah, exactly, bring it to a future.
Well, I can go back to the drawing board. I wasn't prepared for that this
Okay,
evening.
no,
was
I don't
prepared for-
want one now. I'm just thinking for the
No, yeah,
future. Like, if you
yes.
continue to get inquiries about it, maybe keep a list, and if you could bring it back and just give feedback to it, maybe in the future we could expand it more than the 100%. But for now, I think we're ready to make a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
Question, would it be appropriate? Oh, I'm sorry. Would it be appropriate to expand our motion to include not only the aquatic facility, but any other recreational opportunities that we might be able to provide?
You can't do it the way it's agendized right now.
Okay.
You
But
have to
another
stick
agenda
with the
item?
aquatic facility and the
Okay.
100% service connected.
Okay.
I think okay, go ahead. Would you, Joe?
Make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors a new policy allowing free use of the Carson City Aquatics Facility to Carson City resident veterans with 100% service-connected disabilities.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks again for your service, and enjoy the pool.
Thank you.
And I guess I just wanted to, and we didn't open it to public comment. Maurice just walked in, so just wanted to point out the pool is closed tomorrow. Is that right? That's right, Kurt? So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just give a quick plug.
Yes, tomorrow we are closed. The Carson Aquatic Facility is closed, and why we're closed is to have all the paving done, all the parking lot that was ripped up from Oxaby all the way to Roop Street. We're going to have all that paving done in one full swoop. It'll be done, and we'll move on. They'll move on to the east end of the park, so that there's no danger to any of our people walking back and forth or anything like that. The people that are doing it are very grateful that we're closing down. I just think it's the best way to get it done, so.
Yeah, well, enjoy a new parking lot. So, thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
All right, item E, to approve Parks and Recreation Commission's report on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and request Carson City staff to submit the report to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. This is with Vern. Hey, Vern.
Hello, I'll take this agenda item. Just for the public's knowledge, basically throughout 2014, the Parks and Recreation Commission reviewed the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. From that review process, staff, on behalf of the commission, has put together a report based on that year-long review of the master plan. And on February 3rd, we brought it here for a look-see. The commission had some other thoughts they wanted incorporated. I've attempted to do that in the document that I have provided for you. I'm calling this the final draft, but if there are other things that I may have missed or you wanted to add, we certainly could do that. So I guess really with that intro, are there any questions regarding the draft report? Are there some additions, deletions? What is the commission's pleasure? Or corrections?
Okay.
So anyway, I'm open to, I mean, I could go bit by bit through it, but I'm making the assumption that everybody's read it and would be willing to provide me comments. So we'll move forward with that assumption.
Sure. No, I've been over it. It looks like Commissioner Bagwell's got a couple comments.
Okay, so on page 1, chapter 2G.
Hang on, let me get there.
Page 1, chapter 2G.
Yes.
Additional funding is needed, not in needed.
Okay.
Is needed.
I will check that against the actual master plan, but I'm guessing you're correct on that.
Or fix the other one that's got the typo. I'm not sure which, sorry. I'm just reading this document.
No, that's fine, good.
Page 2, chapter 5, recreation programs, third sentence in A. The Recreation Division has been able to maintain a number of existing.
Perfect.
Page 3, chapter 6C. Second, neighborhood park facilities and, is that expanded another neighborhood park?
It should have been ED, correct, very good.
Okay, Fairview Drive. What did I have? I wrote here redevelopment, question mark. The Parks and Recreation Board has acquired 3 new neighborhood facilities and expanded another neighborhood parks, including all the landscape, traffic, islands, and right-of-ways on Carson Street, north of Fairview Drive. The labor in
That
the...
does get to be a little long sentence, but.
Yeah, additional labor requirements for these areas are restored. Oh, I know what I was commenting here. It says the additional labor requirements for these areas were absorbed without any increase to our department's labor budget. So my question is, does not redevelopment actually, isn't that now charged for the labor for that section?
Scott can answer that question a little bit better, but what happened is, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Scott, is that when NDOT completed the north leg of the freeway from down to Fairview, so it went all the way from Duck Hill all the way down to Fairview, NDOT doesn't maintain two dual facilities. Okay. So they basically turned over the street, basically from the North Carson interchange all the way to Fairview to us. There were maintenance responsibilities within those right-of-way areas, like the landscape islands north of College Parkway, south of College Parkway, the big green area just off of Stewart Street, some of those kind of responsibilities which are out of the redevelopment area. So we had to absorb those. Scott, if you wanted to add anything to that, feel free.
Yeah, currently the only thing that redevelopment, the only landscaping that redevelopment helps us with funding is on Carson Street. All of the other areas are funded through RTC through the gas tax. So we have Public Works assist us with gas tax to fund those maintenance areas.
Right. So is this paragraph correct? That's what I'm getting at. It says that there was no additional funding, but redevelopment pays for the Carson Street section and RTC pays for the freeway swap section, right? So are you just trying to say it didn't go to parks specifically, but you were funded for the activities? So I guess I just question, I don't want to make a statement in here that you didn't get funding for it when didn't go to the parks budget, but you do receive funding for those activities, just from different budgets.
Yeah, Commissioner Bagwell, I think that, your latter thing is probably correct. I didn't get additional funding for it because it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, the parks budget doesn't have different accounts for monies that are coming in to do these kinds of jobs, so they just absorbed it and.
But they didn't absorb it. That's what I'm trying to say. What I'm stating is they did not absorb it. Redevelopment pays $100,000 over to parks maintenance, and I don't know honestly how much you get from RTC because that's not my particular
I'm
budget.
wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
So
we
I
were
was
getting-
just making the recommendation that one sentence, the additional labor requirements down to materials, be struck, or that you just double check it or reword the sentence if I'm misunderstanding, because it's Carson Street, and I know that there might be a piece. And I don't mind if you want to look that up to fix it and see what you really meant there.
And I think it's
So I might be
appropriate to be
misinterpreting.
more precise and to reword that, and I think it would be appropriate to do that.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Let's see. Then on,
Do you mind if I just made a couple notes on a couple of those? But just part of it, this is just kind of just basic, I guess, wording, but like it says, as mentioned above, the Parks and Recreation, I think you could just say the Parks and Recreation Department, like based on
Without mention
6C
above.
that you're talking about, yeah, and 6D also, where it refers to also the Parks and Recreation Division's aquatic facility. I think you could just say the Recreation Division's aquatic facility.
this is from that page.
Just basic, little,
Grammar,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I had is on page 5, the middle paragraph.
Yeah, he did it again,
The second to last
I think it's
sentence.
the first page. He was okay.
Turn that off when he talks. And recreation is optimistic about the future of parks and recreations in this community, not with this community,
Oh, yeah, I was going to say within this community.
or within, either one.
In this community, that's fine.
Right? And then keep going down, just two more sentences down, being placed, again, ED, on staff, especially the cumulative
Being
impact.
placed, very good. Very
And then 5 sentences up from the bottom, the John D. Winners, John space.
Oh.
Oh, is it all one?
That's
John
exact-
D is one word?
That is one word, yes.
That's
Oh,
exactly
okay.
how it's spelled.
Really?
It's
Wow.
strange how that's spelled, but it is.
Okay, then I'm okay with
We
that.
get that all the time.
That is middle initial, or that was his name, maybe? John D? Okay.
Yeah, that's how he spelled it.
That's how he spelled it, believe it or not.
Without
Yeah,
the
it seems-
space.
yeah.
We went through that.
Okay. See there. Okay.
No, these are good comments. These are nice little editorial catches. You'll look at this and you'll look at this, and you have other people look at it, and you just miss these things, and so it's appreciated. Thank you.
And then,
Sure.
good.
And
I'm
then,
on
Vern,
exhibit
sorry, a
one.
couple
Got another?
more. It's 6, similar to what I said, 6F
6F.
is, as mentioned above, I think,
Okay.
again, like the Recreation Division
Okay.
be suitable. Okay.
Anything else, Brett?
No, I was good. Commissioner Bagwell, did you have some more, or was that it?
Just question on your Exhibit 1, under your Community Center Theater Support. You've added the LED Message Center, as if that was so may I ask, did you not used to control the Message Center, but you did it manually, and now it's easier because you have the LED? I'm hoping, because that's what we paid out of redevelopment for the
No.
LED. It's gotten better, right? Not.
Right. I think when Eric submitted this, we were looking at it from the standpoint of what was new, and that was a new sign, but you're right, there is.
It's much easier and faster.
Right.
It's an improvement, so I'm just saying I would strike it because it's an we got something better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we got one thing better.
One thing there. And now the good. Yes, okay, that's good. Good comments.
And then the same thing under your park facilities, the BMX track lighting, is that one not done also, and so it got better?
Well, it is, but it's new. I mean, so what you've accomplished with the BMX track lighting is there was not anything existing, unlike the community center reader
Okay.
board.
So there was no lighting at all?
There was no lighting to
Okay.
begin with.
I'm okay with that then. No lighting at all.
Unless you counted the guys going out there and turning on their car lights to race.
So that's truly a brand new.
That is truly a brand-new facility that we just got done.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm catching up to this Parks and Rec, you guys, you know? You guys got years on me on this committee.
Good study, good study.
I'm trying. I think so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a great report. I sent Vern an email thanking him for this because, I've been asking for this for a long time. My question actually is to Commissioner Bagwell. What's going to happen when this comes to the Board of Supervisors? It seems to me it should have quite an impact, I would hope. For example, the last paragraph in the main report, having said that, the commission is becoming increasingly concerned related to continuing demands, blah, blah, blah. Something has to, there's something happening here that I think the public and the board, I'm sure the board is aware of, but should be thinking about, because things are starting to happen. As we don't have the great look to some of our facilities that we've had in the past, and I know that budget time is coming up and there's priorities all over the place, and Parks doesn't usually get very high on that, but I think this is good timing for this report to be going forward to the board and explaining to them that this is going on. Now we're going to have growth. Now we're going to have increase in things, and so there's going to even be more. And I assume that when we get to the capital budget process, we're going to have a new list, which is things that we need to do. And, for example, I think it was at the last meeting, we had Scott's report on the paving on the trails, and what are we going to do? So somehow or another, there has to be some way of looking forward in terms of, how are we going to try to deal with some of this? Seriously.
Am I like being put on the spot here?
That's why you're on the commission.
I'm supposed to be your advocate, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I mean, you have
Actually, so I think you have a few issues that face each of us. And so one of the important roles is we did, as a Board of Supervisors, just approve the creation of a maintenance budget that has never been in the city before. So I'm hoping that that will be accessible to all the different departments, and those would be for projects and things that you should only do every 5 years, which would be like paving or painting or a roof repair. The things that usually, like you said, get pushed off because we can wait another year, and then you find out that the building's actually degraded because you didn't do the painting or the roof repair. So I hope that there's opportunities there, and the board has already taken that action for the next budget go-around. Then the other issue that you have, and I'm sure that Park staff can tell you, is when it comes to the capital account, you compete against all the other departments to be able to to get funding. So you're going to compete against police cars and fire engines and a repair somewhere else. And so I think it's imperative that the staff be able to articulate if there is an asset that will be lost if we don't take an action. And I think sometimes we don't talk about the useful lives of some of the issues here to say, hey, we're bumping up against, that's it. We're going to lose this trail, or we're going to lose this park to be able to use the playground equipment at all, because we're going to have to put a red tag on it because it's not safe. And so I think that's how you have the ability to compete better. Doesn't mean you're still going to compete to the top, but, and certainly advocating at meetings. Sometimes those that talk the loudest receive support, and I don't often, I don't know that I see the legions of people supporting where you're going versus some of the other items, and so those are also recommendations.
The reason why I mentioned this, and I'm sorry I did mean to put you on the spot, actually, and you did a very good job. But I would ask that, I don't know when this is coming to the Board of Supervisors, but I hope I'm available. I intend to speak to it. Because it's not just the capital, it's not just, it's you know, they've lost staff. And yet we do have, okay, the pluses, there's a computer system now. I don't know how well it's working on the reservation system, but, when you start losing staff, you start, just having the ability to get things out, to do things. And so I want to, point that out too, and they have very well in this report, pointed out not only all the new activities, but the loss of staff. So it's just, yeah.
There was Vern, I just wanted us to point out on the park facilities, like I think it's the last page. Would it be appropriate to add the Ash to King Trail? It's not, I know it's not necessarily like a park, but I'd say it was a pretty significant.
Well, is it open space or parks?
Yeah.
Well, whose is it?
It's our departments. How about that? It's the Parks and Recreation Department's facility. Now, we do talk about the Fairview, we do talk about the Carson City Freeway multi-use path. We talk about some other path projects. I guess that would be the question. It has been put in, it's on our property. I don't know how you want to handle that, Scott. Muscle Power is going to be maintaining it, not us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, because it's really not, I can't pass the giggle test by saying that's an impact to our department to maintain that facility, because we already have agreements and relationships in place to take care of it, so.
Probably leave it out then, okay.
I think it would be.
The rifle range?
No,
where they do the maintenance and stuff on that facility too, but it's still the park's responsibility. If they stop doing the maintenance.
No,
it's going to be
the Carson Rifle and Pistol Club does very little, if any, maintenance on the, and if you noticed by the press releases, the last few weeks we've been closing the range. Actually, today the range was closed because we were out there doing maintenance and repairs. Our department does all the maintenance and repairs.
Oh, I thought, that was my understanding, is that the club did it.
No, the club pitches in by picking up litter and things like that occasionally, but really the role of the club there is to schedule the events and activities at the range, not necessarily to do the maintenance. We do the maintenance out there. But the Carson Rifle and Pistol Range is a perfect example of deteriorating facilities like you talk about. I mean, we have a lot of structures out there that need to be replaced, and we don't have a lot of resources to do it. So if you go out to the Carson Rifle and Pistol Range, as we discussed, in previous meetings, that's an example of areas where we really need to see improvements, and the declining economy and our declining resources have shown out there, just like they have at a lot of other facilities too.
Okay, any other comments? Public comments? All right, anybody willing to make a motion? I'll make a motion. I got to get to it, bear with me. I move to approve the Parks and Recreation Commission report on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and request the city staff to submit the report to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Do we second?
Yeah, Commissioner Curtis seconded.
Okay.
Do you want to do another one? all in favor, say aye. Okay.
Scott, do you know when this is going to the board?
That's a very good question. I think Roger and I were under the impression that we were going to submit the report to the Planning Commission, just submit it. We didn't necessarily think there'd be a full-blown presentation on it. But I can certainly have that discussion with Roger when he gets back and see how he wants to do that. We have no problems going to the Planning Commission and going through the report with them. I would certainly have no problems going to the Board of Supervisors, but I think staff's original intent was just to give them the report, and if they wanted us to come and talk to them about it, we would do so. But that doesn't mean that has to be that way.
You mean this is not going to be presented to the Board of Supervisors as a regular agenda item?
Well, we hadn't thought about it in that regard, but we certainly can.
I would certainly hope we could. I
Okay.
mean, this is a lot of work, and, like Open Space, when they gave their report, and the other committees, they give progress reports, goes to the board, and it's public.
Right.
And I think this should be.
And I don't have a problem with that. We can discuss it. It's just that, at least it wasn't at least the initial intent, is that they would get the report, but there would not be a full-blown presentation to them. But we certainly could go down that line, and if we did, since this is a commission's report, we would look at the chair probably to lead the charge on that versus staff, because this is, and it always has been the idea that this was the commission's report to the board. So if the commission is willing to, charge up the hill to present this to the board, we can talk to Roger about it, but, I get your point. I understand your point.
Something was about, yeah. Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You want to comment since I've been on the hook?
Yeah, no, I think, go ahead, we can send it, recommend to send it to the Board of Supervisors for their review.
So we already did that,
Right.
and I guess what the objective is, there are 2 points here. So we get a lot of reports that are submitted, which is what this motion was, submitted to us, and so then as the board members, we will read all of these reports, and then we may reach out to a particular department head saying, we'd like that as a full presentation, because we have questions or topics or things to discuss. So this one, the motion is to submit. However, in the first meeting of May, you may want to make your public comment during the budget piece, because I'm sure you're going to submit this to the Board of Supervisors before the May.
Yes, my hope was to go ahead and make the minor changes and then go ahead and submit as soon as we could.
So that the Board of Supervisors, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, sorry, I can only do that, I'm not speaking for the rest of the board. We will have had an opportunity to read this prior to the budget hearing, because that's what's important, is that we have this information before we go into deliberations on the budget. And so that first meeting in May, some of you may wish to come and then put forth your recommendations to give parks some more funding during the May budget, because that's where the rubber meets the road, is the budget.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but as much as I appreciate that, if it gets in front of the board as a presentation as any other board agenda item, then it gets into the binders, everybody reads it online, they can read the background material, so it becomes public. And that's the thing, that this report, one of the problems that we've had in this city for so many years is that, the public just hasn't been made aware of a number of things. And not saying they're not aware of this, but it seems to me after all this effort and our relative importance in the city, that this should be presented to the Board of Supervisors like any other agenda item and discussed. And then it's a good background thing to go into the budget.
So I'm just giving you timelines here. You're not going to make the next meeting because you're already past that the next one is the budget hearing. So I don't know how much time there's going to be on that agenda item to actually go over this report versus the budget. So I'm just giving you, do you want us to read this before the budget discussion? I'm just trying to help you think about this.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think, if you look at the timeline and the workload that the board agendas have and everything that's being stacked up behind it right now, realistically, it's not going to get on the board agenda in a timely manner. I think probably the best strategy to do right now would be to submit it to the board, let them digest it, and then we, as staff internally, get together with Roger when he gets back and see what the appetite is to put it on the board agenda. But for right now, timing-wise, if you really want the board to be well-versed in this and educated in it when they go into the budget hearings, we should just submit this as a submittal.
Sure, and the other aspect I was going to say is that this is good, I think, good information to see the activity, but ultimately, when we're talking about budget hearings and allocating money, I don't know that this is really the appropriate document. What I think it would be our prioritized list and going and pleading our case saying, look, the roof on the pool is falling down, it needs to be fixed. I think that would be maybe a bit more appropriate approach than to submit kind of our really kind of year-end review of the master plan prior to the budget.
And this is something we can certainly remind the board and reference to the board because they will already have had this submitted to them. So it's a timing thing right now.
Sure.
Well, how about the best of both worlds? We'll give it to the board now so they have time to digest it because it's a hefty thing. But then schedule it for presentation from the commission on the city's master plan. And this is the update. And therefore, the public is aware of what we've done and what's in it. Because I think it's too basic and too important just to have 5 people read it, and the city manager, I assume. So I don't know how to force this session.
No, I mean,
and I'm not trying to, but if it goes into staff meetings and you guys decide, no, we don't want to do that, is that the end of it?
Well, we will bring it up with the city manager and discuss it and see if if he wants to bring it forward to the Board of Supervisors
Well, make
as
sure
a
that
presentation.
you get my message to them.
Oh, we will.
And I will too.
Yes.
So the other
I
thing
can
is,
request it as a board member. I certainly can request this as an agenda item. I'm just letting you know I won't be making that request prior to the budget.
sure.
So
I
if
think right
that's
now,
okay with all of you, that I indicate to you after.
Sure.
It's just,
like, I'm not, at this point, I
It's a
think we're
timing
not too
issue.
worried about trying to make the budget this year.
right. So if you're okay, I don't mind requesting a agenda item on behalf of Parks and Rec to present the report. I don't have an issue doing that, as long as you're all okay with. I might request it at the May meeting, but I'm not going to try to get it on the agenda on the next 2 meetings.
So,
Okay.
what else can we do to make it public? Can we get it available? Because I know all of our minutes and everything, people can read it, but it's not necessarily, I'm sure it's not highly sought after. It's probably not the top Google hit.
Well, just like with all of your documents you have in your packet, that's up online, so anybody can look
Yeah.
at it and read it, as far as that goes. So it's not like this is a document we're doing and hiding from anybody.
Right,
He just
absolutely.
wants it to go viral is all.
Yeah.
So certainly, the
So I was gonna say is-
revised version should be posted on the website once he cleans up from our comments, so that we have a good version online.
So, yeah, so for the record,
For the
carson.org, you can go see the up-to-date year-end review of 2014. Okay.
Illustrious press, I don't know.
So we're going to move on to the update of the multipurpose athletic center project.
Just before, Mr. Chairman, before we go on,
Okay.
just to make sure, even though the motion didn't indicate that the changes were to be included in the report, I will get that. Didn't he say that? Okay, I missed that then. Okay, very good.
So
We'll-
it will
those
be
all
as
get-
amended, sure. And I think you did have a disclaimer in there, the grammar and some formatting, basic stuff that you could still update.
We'll take one more, we'll have our eagle eye person look at this one more time to catch the tenses and some of the spelling issues again, just before we send it out to the board and the planning commission. But basically, what you see is what we're going to present with a few.
Looks good, and thanks for your work.
You're welcome. No, it was helpful. The
Nice
last
job.
time it came forward, I thought the commission provided some real good, solid comments, and and it sounds like that those comments I tried to incorporate, and everybody liked them. So, good team effort. Like my daughter says, go team.
Okay, so it's an update on the multi-athletic center project. Do we have anything good happening?
Well, Roger couldn't be here this evening, so I was requested to read this into the public record. And here it goes on the multi-purpose athletic center. We're into 6 weeks of construction. Staff has been attending weekly meetings with the CMAR contractor, architect, and the Public Works management team. Construction has been going well. Staff met with Public Works and the architect and selected colors and textures for the walls and floors. So if you have been out there driving by, there's a lot of movement of big equipment out there, and so things are moving forward.
Great. Thank you. Any comments for commissioners? Public? All right. 4B.
Okay.
Update. Okay, go ahead.
Again, Roger provided me with this update. Update on the 2015 Arbor Day ceremony to be held on Saturday, April 25th, 2015 at Long Ranch Park. The Shade Tree Council and the Parks and Recreation. I'm sorry, Donna. Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The Shade Tree Council and the Parks and Recreation Department will be holding their annual Arbor Day ceremony at Long Ranch Park on Saturday, April 25th. The ceremony will begin at 10 a.m. There will be a ceremonial tree planting of a ginkgo tree, and I don't know how familiar you are with a ginkgo tree, but it's kind of a unique tree, but it'll do well here. Donated by the Desert Gardeners Garden Club. The mayor will read an Arbor Day proclamation, and a representative of the Nevada Division of Forestry will read the governor's proclamation. The ceremony will be followed by a dog-friendly, on-leash, 2-mile fun run walk, and doggy doo-doo bags. Roger said that, okay, I'm not making that up. Doggy doo-doo bags will be supplied to those with dogs. So
It's not the technical term.
it's not the technical term, but
That's the uncensored version.
that's the uncensored version. So anyway, if anybody is watching at home this evening and want to come out, it'll be a great time. And of course, the commission is welcome to come and be a part of the
So we're
ceremony.
planting a tree, it's gonna snow.
Yeah, sure enough.
All right,
So there we go.
Any comments?
I have a comment.
Go
Just a
ahead.
question for Vern. Hey, Vern, I noticed we're doing these on Saturdays. Do we get more turnout on Saturday than Friday? Because I remember a couple Fridays where we had nobody.
Sure, that was a concern of the Shade Tree Council. They thought that they'd get a bigger turnout on a Saturday instead of.
Has that proven true?
It has been true. I mean,
Oh, good.
They've struggled over recent years with, people having to work and, so they decided that instead of having it the traditional Arbor Day, which is the last Friday in April, that they were going to go to the last Saturday in April. And I think, especially when you have an event like that, the one thing that they've been trying to do is incorporate activities and events instead of just having a 20, 25-minute ceremony, plant the tree, and everybody go home. So now it's they're trying to have it become more of a family-type event. Come on out, plant the tree, go to the fun run walk, get together and spend half a day. So we'll see how it goes, weather permitting.
All right. Thank you. Any public comments? Okay. Members' announcements. Do we have a report from the school board?
I'll just make just a quick announcement. Last week, I was able to attend Carson Middle School. They did their mock interviews. And, several kids were talking about what they wanted to do when they became adults, and I was surprised there were a fair amount that wanted to get into environmental fields and be involved, in outdoor recreational type things. So I thought that was, it was interesting and encouraging, but I really wanted to just put a plug out to Carson Middle School and just congratulate them for the great job these kids did. Everybody was well prepared, well dressed. You can tell they were coached with, with mannerisms and eye contact, and it just was something that as a school board member we were proud to see. And again, I just wanted to congratulate the school and the kids, and I know Eagle Valley is getting ready to do theirs, and we're expecting the same success from theirs. So just wanted to publicly congratulate them.
All right. Thank you.
Could I just add, Joe, that I did that too? And, yeah, it's very impressive to have these kids, fill out their resumes and, tell us what your work history is, 8th grade. But sadly, there were 2 of them that told me that they had to stop playing instruments because they didn't have the money for them, and their families didn't have it. And I'm going to look into that because that bothers me. But, anybody who has a desire to do something like that and doesn't have the means, we need to work on that. But anyway, it was great.
Thank you. Future agenda items. Is there anything people would like to add to the future items? I think I mentioned to Roger he's going to work at some disc golf kind of update and give us kind of a status of what's going on with getting a new spot laid out or whatever it is. So, is there anything else? One thing I think we mentioned before, but that SNPLMA grant thing that's going to be happening in the fall. I'll maybe talk to Roger, but to see, I wonder if we can maybe work with Eagle Valley people as well, but kind of put together maybe a list of a few trail type items that maybe we could apply for that that grant, and then any other things that commissioners might see fit. But I know that multi-organizational connecting 2 places together, there's a lot of things that could, I think that would work well, maybe with the Eagle Valley guys. But if there's other things that are on people's radar as well, I'd like to get that going so we can have, get at least that draft started for the fall.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was just looking at the minutes for February 3rd, and I think it was you that asked for update on V&T plans.
It was, actually.
Okay. That's why we have the future agenda item list, is so that we can capture these things and not lose them.
And, I've actually I still have it on my list. One thing Roger mentioned at that time is they were still working through some details. There was really essentially nothing to bring forward. So he mentioned he would do it, but it's a good point.
But he could put it on, we have that no date set yet.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why we did it
so
that way.
I think at least putting it on there, yep, for
Don't
sure.
lose it. Also, I'd asked Scott in the past, I'd seen an article in the paper about homeless using our facilities, and this is another program now. I don't know what it involves or, but if we could just have a discussion-only item, that kind of explains what that is and how that's helping out. Is that?
Yeah, we could bring that forward. I can tell you right now that we are having discussions with Fish about it, about some of the trials and tribulations of having the homeless stay there during the winter months, just because we have events going on, and it's difficult sometimes with the scheduling part of it. We want to help and we're happy to help, but it's a scheduling thing. And, we've had liability concerns with it, and so we're working with Fish. We're having discussions with them, and I think once we figure out what we want to do, then we can bring it to the commission and inform you. So.
Great.
Any other comments or things to add for future agenda? Public comments? Reese, anything? All right. Could I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Second.